Hey all, my name is Mark Blanchard, and the decision to become a patron of the Addressing Gettysburg podcast was easy. First is the depth and the breadth of the content. The guests and the topics covered have given me access to the best and most knowledgeable voices in the game right now. The second reason is just as important, and that is the style and personality that infuses the content and has now created a community. This is true of the Addressing Gettysburg crew, but also the guides and the authors. Hobbies are fun, but they are more fun when shared. That is why I am and will remain a patron of the pod.
From the Gettysburg Museum of History Studios, you're listening to Addressing Gettysburg.
Man, that was loud. My headphones are way up high. Hi, everybody. Welcome to this episode of Addressing Gettysburg's Spotlight On. And today we are talking to our friend, Dr. Jennifer Murray. You know her. She's been on the show before. Most recently, we had her on to talk about the JFK assassination. And oh boy, was that controversial. I mean, not really, but, there were some goofy comments in there, and that's what's so fun about talking about JFK. Jen, welcome to the show.
Matt, thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. So let's talk about you. That's the whole idea of this whole thing. You are a Pennsylvania native.
That is correct. I was born in Pennsylvania.
Where in Pennsylvania were you born?
A small community called Myersdale, PA, in Somerset County. So it's about 2.5 hours west of here.
Okay. And what else is in Somerset County? Does it have a big town or big city or anything?
No, it's kind of a coal community. It's sort of the Appalachian part of western Pennsylvania.
Okay.
So it's not very small. It's a very small community. I think like 2,000 people live there today. So it's small.
Oh, all right, yeah.
Rural part of Pennsylvania. So
you grew up there. What were you like as a kid? Like, what did you like to do?
I liked to play sports as a kid.
Okay.
I played softball as a kid, starting I think at the age of 6, and played through college actually. So very much sports were my life growing up. Played Division III softball. I got my undergraduate at Frostburg State. So I played softball for 20 years, pretty seriously and consistently. So
how do you go from I don't normally think of athletes as intellectuals that go on to become, PhDs, professors and things like that. But I guess that would be incorrect of me, because there are plenty who do that, I'm sure. I haven't met them except for you. So who does that?
I don't know. I'd have to think of some examples, some other people. I'm not quite sure. Academics don't usually tend to be the most athletically inclined. And
athletically inclined don't tend to be mostly intellectual or intellectual.
I think the reason they kept me on because I brought the team GPA up. That's not true.
Oh, okay.
That's not true. I was a very good softball player.
Okay.
In addition to bringing up the team's GPA.
All right. Well, either way, you did it, and then you get to college. What makes you decide? First of all, when do you get into history?
Kind of late.
Really?
Yeah. When I went to college, I went to Frostburg State, which is in Maryland. So I grew up in Maryland. I was born in Pennsylvania, moved to Maryland, right across the Mason-Dixon line. Wasn't sure what I wanted to major in. Actually, I wanted to do sports medicine, to be an athletic trainer for a sports program, and that sort of didn't really work out. So I double majored in history and political science. I liked history well enough to think it was worth majoring in, but never could have envisioned having a career as a historian. So if you would have told 19-year-old Jen that this is how her life would have worked out, it would have been incomprehensible to think that I would have ended up with a career in history.
So you just wanted to get in like sports medicine?
Yeah, I wanted to be an athletic trainer, like on the sidelines for the football team, to be the person that runs out and takes care of the injured athlete.
Yeah.
Right. And this is I graduated high school in 2000. So this is just like when women's sports are starting to get a little bit more widespread. The Olympic softball team is starting to win gold medals. So it's an interesting time to be a young girl interested in sports, because we were starting to get more kind of profile nationally and internationally. So that's what I wanted to do.
And then you didn't.
And then I didn't.
So somewhere along the line, you got the idea, well, maybe I'm going to go into doing what you do today. What was that moment? Like, what happened?
So I majored in history and political science. I was thinking about maybe law school. I was really interested in law, and I was interested in U.S. history. I needed to do an internship. And the summer between my senior year, my junior year, rising senior, I think we call that now. So the summer between my junior and senior year, I interned from the National Park Service here at Gettysburg. I wasn't specifically interested in Civil War at that time. I'm like, it's okay. It's interesting. Let's apply for this internship. I need one for my major. I got it. Scott Hartwig selects the interns back in the day and selected me. So come over here and spent, 16 weeks during the summer. Lived in the old Welcome Traveler, which is since torn down. That was on Baltimore Pike. It was across the street from the entrance to the visitor center today with some other interns.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They put the interns up there and spent my summer here talking about Civil War. And for me, that was the root. So, which is why today I'm super passionate to get my students, one, out to historic sites, and two, do internships. And I will tell my students all the time, that summer changed my life. Like, it truly changed my life, and it opened doors for me that I couldn't have imagined.
That's when you decided, this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
So you were really kind of just doing it because it was something that you needed to do for school.
Yeah, I needed to do the internship for school. It was close. Gettysburg's like 2 hours from home. I'm a working class kid. You know, my parents aren't academics. We're kind of a blue collar family. So to think about going to graduate school would be a pretty big deal. It never happened in my family. It was kind of uncommon. So coming over here and doing the internship, and then I thought, well, I might pursue a master's degree in that. Maybe I'll think about going to graduate school, and let's see what this like Civil War career could be like. And that's the route I took. It was never intended, never conceived in any way, and it ended up being a career.
It's funny because I was always the type of person who I knew what I was interested in from a very young age, and the rest of my life was the pursuit of making a living in those fields. And I'm trying to remember if there was ever a point in my life where an unexpected experience or something I was just compelled to do because someone said I had to turn me on to something I never considered before. I kind of envy that. Like, I didn't have that. I always knew what I liked, and that was, you couldn't tell me otherwise.
Well, you know, the Civil War community is always people who are interested in Civil War from a really young age.
Right.
That's what you hear, I think, by and large, most of the time. But that wasn't my experience. Not at all.
So what was it then? If you weren't interested in it from a young age, how does someone become interested in it later on, especially in the cynical 20s? You were in your 20s, right?
I think I was 19 when I interned here. Yeah, 19.
20s.
Yeah,
close.
We'll round up. Okay.
Late teens, early 20s.
Yeah, we'll round up.
Yeah.
It was being here, really. And it's just sort of not having any, I guess, just being here and having the experience on the battlefield, like being at the site, meeting all sorts of people. I had great mentors I worked with here at the Park Service who really cultivated the interest and encouraged me. People who ended up being an influence in my life for a long time forward. And it was a great environment to be 19 years old working with the best in the business in the National Park Service, Scott Hartwig, Eric Campbell, John Heiser, to be around those people, these great people who care about this place. It rubs off. It's infectious. You see it all the time. People come here and they just get like infected with the Gettysburg bug. And I did, but I was 19 when it happened.
But so you what is it that, was it the people that made you say, okay, well, this is interesting to, or let me back up. Was this your first historic site that you had ever even visited, let alone worked at?
No, my family would go to historic places, right? We're close. I'd been to Gettysburg before on a way to a softball tournament, actually. So we sort of stopped on the way of doing something else. And I've been to Antietam and I visited these places, and I studied it, right? I had an undergraduate degree in history, or was completing one, but it wasn't anything that I was just deeply wedded to making my career as a historian. That wasn't me growing up.
So then, so you'd been here before. on the way to a sporting event. So obviously on your mind is sports. You're not thinking of like taking in the scenery and the story and all that stuff. So it didn't have any effect on you then.
Not really. I was thinking about getting my batting average up and,
Right.
like what.
Right.
No, it didn't really make a huge impression at that time. It was sort of a stop on the way to go somewhere else. But being here then that summer that I interned every day for the full summer was remarkable. There's nothing like it. It changed my life. It truly did.
When you think back on it now, like what's the one thing that you always think of that do you get a feeling of comfort or like warmth or some kind of something like that when you think back on it? Or what is the prevailing memory that you have of that time?
Of that summer?
Yeah.
It is, I guess it is a sense of warmth and opportunity and not knowing what that internship would lead to. I was working at McDonald's. I paid my way through my undergraduate degree by working I worked at McDonald's for 6 years. So like to have this opportunity and to take me to being a college professor, which is a pretty amazing career, is just kind of remarkable. It's unbelievable. And it's unconventional. A lot of academics don't come from like blue collar kind of roots, right? It's a very kind of elitist, your family members are academics, right? It's sort of generational. So it's kind of unconventional path for me. And I'm really proud of that. And the older I get, the more proud I am of that.
The more you realize that you had a unique life.
Yeah.
When you compare to other people who do what you do.
Yeah.
So you get the internship, you then you immediately go back and you're like, okay, this is what I'm going to do now.
That was it, right? So I did the internship and then I started my senior year at Frostburg State. I ended up getting a job seasonally at the C&O Canal. So I would work at the C&O Canal on the weekends. The C&O Canal's terminus is in Cumberland, Maryland, close to my hometown. So I would work there. They have a visitor center there, work there on the weekends. So up until the next summer, I applied for the seasonal job at Gettysburg. And I became my first summer seasonal here was in the summer of 2003. And I ended up working for the Park Service here for 9 summers.
Really? So the first time you applied for a job here, you got it. And then the next 9 or 8 after that, were you? Yeah,
well, I was a student. So I was in the MA program and the PhD program at the same time. And I know that's changed a little bit, but it used to be a program called STEP, Student Temporary Employment Position, I think, the STEP program, that they could pluck you and not have to worry about USA Jobs and veterans preference, provided you were enrolled in school. So when I was a seasonal here, there were a lot of people, my peers and colleagues, who were graduate students at other schools who were coming here to work on seasonal employment at the same time they were in the MA or PhD program.
It's kind of like the opposite of Vietnam.
Right.
If you're in school, you get pulled in.
Yes.
If you're in school in Vietnam, you don't have to go. You don't have to get drafted.
Right.
Right.
Being in school is a privilege either way, right?
Yeah. It helps to go to school, I guess, for certain things.
Stay in school, kid.
Yeah. So you do that and you finish school. Okay, let's move along there. You finish school. Okay, now you go all the way to your PhD. Well, no. Tell me about your 20s. What did you do in your 20s? Just school?
School in the 20s, yes.
Listen to the rest of this interview and dozens like it. Support the show and get early access to special episodes, early and discounted ticket sales, and more. The second lieutenant level and above gets access to all monthly Patreon episodes. So please go to patreon.com/addressinggettysburg, choose a tier, and join. And I thank you in advance.